Let's start off by walking you through some of the tiny things that I keep on my set that make my life a lot better. Little things can make a very big difference when you're working on set, particularly as a beverage photographer. I keep everything as organized as I possibly can. I just picked this up off of eBay. It's a great little old tray. It actually came from a diamond manufacturer. Bought it for a couple of bucks, and it's a nice place where I can keep all the little things I need. So when I open these up, I have things like washers. Washers are really handy on set. I often use these to level a glass, level a beer bottle, or even shim the set slightly, because as I'm photographing liquids, I want everything perfectly level. That's really important. I also have lots of different types of little pins and clamps. Clothespins. I use these things all the time for gels, for holding cards, whatever. And I also have little tiny ones, which are super handy. You can get these at a craft store. These are nice little clamps. If you just need to hold a little tiny piece of diffusion or something that's really lightweight in on a set, you can use this without taking up much space at all. Sometimes I need bigger things like nuts rather than just a washer if I need to level something or give something a little bit of weight so that I can hold it. I will often use a washer or a nut in conjunction with some sort of tack, fun tack or blue goo in order to help give hold and body to an object that I want to hold up. I also often have glue. Sometimes we just need to give something a little bit of stick that blue goo isn't working, so we use a little bit of glue for that. And when it comes to things that need to stick, this is Stickum. This is great stuff. It's also known as candle wax. So you can put a little bit of this on a candle, stick it in your candle holder, and it won't move. It also works great on set. When you just need a little bit of something sticky to help hold something in place, this is amazing. It's also pretty clear, so it's a lot easier to retouch than something like blue goo. Blue goo is also known as a photographer's best friend. We love this stuff. You can ball it up, get it nice and warm, and it's super, super sticky, really easy to use, holds everything in place for you. Sometimes blue goo is too much, so there are a couple different varieties. There's also the yellow and the white. The white's almost more like putty. It doesn't have as much stick, but it has body. So if you kind of need to lean something against it, this can actually be a better way to go. And then I also keep things like model lights and fuses for my monoblocks or my power packs right on hand. I don't want to have to search for this stuff. If I've got a power pack that goes down, a model light that goes out, I want to be able to grab it really quickly and go right to my set. So that's one of the ways that I keep myself kind of nice and organized. This is always right on the edge of my set. I can go to it whenever I need something little. Let's get into some of the tools that are really specific to beer. So again, I try to keep myself organized. I have a little toolbox. There are several things that are absolutely critical in cleaning and dressing a bottle. Can of air. You know, if you're a photographer, you live and die by these things as well. Absolutely have to keep your set and your glasses, your cocktails dust-free. This is one of the best ways to do it. Okay, I have a set of brushes. I use these to do all of my actual beer styling. When I'm pushing the slush and the ice chips around and when I'm adhering it to the bottle, I actually use brushes. Don't be afraid to invest in a good set of brushes. These actually belong to my father. They're probably 35 years old, but he bought good ones, and they do a couple of things. They last, and the hairs don't come out in your set, which you don't want that. You don't want to buy a cheap brush, be putting something on, and then you get stuck with a bunch of little hairs. So don't be afraid to spend $5, $10 on a good brush, even more, because they're really important. I also have little tiny skewers. This is just your run-of-the-mill skewer for like a kebab. Get them at any kitchen store or even a grocery store. This is great because it has a fine point. As I'm moving things around, if I want to push slush or spritz to a new position, this is a nice little fine point that'll help me do that. It's smaller and more easy to use than the brush at times. Really important to have. When it comes to prepping bottles, there are a couple things that are absolutely important. We're going to learn a lot more about it when we get to the prepping station. Crystal clear, both gloss and matte. Absolutely essential to making a bottle really shine when you're getting it on set. Another thing that's really important in the prepping of a bottle is glycerin. You can find this at a lot of drugstores. It is the only way to really and truly make spritz look good. We'll get into this in much greater detail. You can find it in a couple of different sizes. Sometimes it can be hard to find. I buy it in mass quantity when I find it. So as we're preparing bottles, there are a couple other things that are really critical. We have ice powder and crystal ice. These are effects from Grove Studios. We'll go into them in greater detail and you'll see just how I use them to make a bottle really refreshing looking. Once we've made our spritz to get a bottle really refreshing looking, we need a way to deliver it, and that comes in an atomizer. Now you can find these in a variety of places. This one happens to be from an eyeglass store. It's for eyeglass cleaning fluid. This one, I don't even remember where I got it. I've had it forever and it is my favorite by far. You will find that they act very differently. You want the spritz to come out in a rather random fashion, and the only way to get that is by testing different atomizers. So even though these two are from the exact same place, they work a little bit differently just because these nozzles are not perfect. You can also find some funky old things. This is an old medical device. It was made for atomizing up a nose, which I'm not going to do, but this can also help create a nice randomized effect of spritz. Once I've found an atomizer that I work, I also figure out exactly what the right spritz mixture is for that atomizer. Sometimes it's 50-50, it can be 60-40, it really depends on the actual atomizer. And I write that number on the atomizer so I know. But I also use little graduated cylinders, little tiny beakers, and small funnels so that I can measure exactly for that atomizer and then deliver it in there. So just a couple bucks at a store, but this will also make your life a lot easier. And then eyedroppers. I will often take an eyedropper, fill it with glycerin or spritz, and then I'll just touch it to a bottle and put a droplet where I want it to be. And tweezers. Always have to have these on set. They're on all my camera stands. They come in really handy. A couple other things I keep on my camera stands. This is an old static brush. It's really nice just to help kind of clean a surface, to get on a bottle and just lightly touch it to get rid of dust. Sometimes I don't want to use a can of air because if I do, I can blow something that's really fragile off of the set. So having a little brush like this can really make a difference. And one of the last things I keep on my set is an angle finder. These are really important for repeatability. Clients will often extend their brand line and they'll want to come back and recreate a similar image with the new product extension. So having an angle finder will really help you when you're done with your set. Measure the angle of your camera. You want to measure the height, the distance, and the angle of the camera. That's all really critical information to going back and making repeatable images to a library for a client. So that's a good look at many of the tools I have. I also have just a few others for you to look at. Acetone. This is really important for two things. One, I use it to help clean up the labels off of a bottle. And I also use it to cut a bottle. Believe it or not, acetone and twine is one of the best ways you can use to cut the base of a bottle off so you can do beer flows. So twine, we also have that. Again, this is something that you can get at a hardware store. You want something that's not nylon based. You want it to be a good cotton based twine because you want it to be able to absorb all of the acetone. When cleaning bottles, goof off or goo gone, this stuff is also really critical. Glue on a label can be really difficult to get off. Acetone helps. This mainly helps get it kind of clean and really polished looking, but the goof off will cut through the glue. You can also use a citrus-based cleaner. That's amazing for getting rid of glue. All right, a level. As I was saying earlier, liquids need to be level, so I always keep these on my cameras. I want to make sure that my set and my camera are as level as possible. I don't want things to be askew, particularly when it comes to liquids. All right, there are a couple other special effects that you can get. This, I don't often use these, but I do have them around. This is floating ice. It's basically a rubber ice. You can break it. If I were to rip this apart, it would look like a shard of ice that I can then drop into a cocktail, and it gives that floating feeling. Another special effect, this stuff is really pretty amazing. This is aqua gel. I use this when I want really thick droplets, or I don't want it to run at all, or I want to create a little pool of liquid on the surface. Aqua gel is one of the best things that I've found to use. And it lasts a really long time. I bet I've had this jar a decade. Still going strong. Drop effect. This is another way to create a really good looking thick droplet that won't run. It pretty much does the same thing as aqua gel. It's just a little different consistency. It's a little bit thicker, and sometimes I need that in a specific location on a bottle. One of the other effects that you can get is a foam booster kit. This is also made by Grove Studios. Sometimes the head of a beer is just a little too thin. The bubbles are almost too scattered. This will actually boost it and make a thicker concentration of bubbles. It just gives the beer a better looking head. I don't often use this, but it's nice to have in my back pocket. And cotton swabs, another photographer's good friends. This is always on every set. If I need to clean up a little bit of a drip, or if I've got liquid that's kind of creeping up the inside of a glass, this is a nice way to get in there and just touch that up so I don't have to do it in post-production. Anti-static rags. These are also really important to me in the bottle prepping stages. Once I've gotten a bottle really clean, I want to wipe it down with the anti-static rag to get dust off. Then I can spray it, and then when I get it on set again, before I really get it all spritzed, I will wipe it down with an anti-static rag so I can make sure it's dust-free. All right. And white gloves. White gloves are also important to handle bottles. Now, there are a couple different types you can get. This is a traditional darkroom glove that you get from a camera store. It looks like an absolute clown glove. It's almost ridiculous, and for my hands, it's way too big. What I have found is that you can go to any drugstore and they actually make manicure gloves. These are for people to cover their hands with lotion and then put these on and it lets the lotion soak in. They're more form-fitting, which is really nice when you're holding a bottle. I don't want all that extra fabric because I've lost a bottle that way. There's just too much fabric there and the bottle can slip. So you can go to a drugstore and just pick up these manicure gloves. They will work a lot better for you in the end. All right. All right, and last but not least, chopsticks. Yes, chopsticks. If you've seen some of my videos before, you know that chopsticks are the only way to really make a good beer head. We're going to go into that in great detail. You can get these at any Chinese restaurant and you don't have to pay for them, so it's basically free. It's like my magic secret to making a good beer pour. So that's a good look at the tools that I use to make beer and beverage production better. Again, these are all small items, but when you add them together, they make a huge difference in your production. And you're probably wondering, Rob, where's your camera gear? Where's all your lighting? And you know me, I love camera gear. We're going to get into that once we put our sets together.